Hello, hello, hello. So I'm here again. Um, and what drove me to come in here to my life today is simply to say that I believe that girls hold up this world. And where is my topic coming from? Not only because of the fact that, we live in a world where uh, men tend to dominate the conversation, dominate the narrative, dominate, corporate America. Um, but the other thing that drove me here today, it's I was listening to one of my favorite YouTubers speak the other day, and she actually is a young Guyanese who has remigrated back to Guyana to take over her dad's business. I initially didn't really know why she was there. I knew she lived in Canada, and I knew that she had gone back home, but she had never revealed. And I thought from just from looking at her and seeing that her age, I knew she was young. I don't know how old she is, maybe about 23, 24, I'm guessing. Um, and she happens to be back home, during COVID was when I started noticing that she was there like permanently. So I assumed that she was there primarily because, a lot of the kids, as we know, I'm lecturing from home now, and so many professors are, and teachers are teaching from home. So we already know what comes with COVID season in terms of education. So I figured she was home just to blow some steam, have some fun, and still attend to her classes online. As so many college students are doing, they're all over at home and or abroad, wherever they are. They're traveling because they're not as impacted as the older population is, of course, with COVID. Doesn't mean that they can't, something can't happen, because as we have seen, we've lost several young people from this virus. So please don't take it for granted, despite what age we are. Right. But I've been looking at her and following her for a minute, and I absolutely enjoy her content. And she revealed the other day that she was back home primarily because her dad had passed away, and that she's taken over his business. And she was, just talking about some of her trials that she's facing in terms of taking over the business as a young woman, and being, not being respected, having to scream a little louder because she's boss, and she's young, and she's a girl. And I don't know when we're going to come out of that patriarchal kind of mindset, where we feel like women can't do things, and that we are not as prepared, or we're not as, I wouldn't say intelligence, because I don't think anyone doubts, whether it's your male or female, doubt the capabilities of a woman's intelligence. Well, I would hope not. But we continue as the less dominant race. I'm sorry, gender, less dominant gender, to fight for equality in pay, equality in education in certain parts of the world. I don't know how many of us have followed the story of Malala, and Malala is one of the youngest Nobel Prize winner, and this young lady is just incredible. She is the one who they attempted to kill because they didn't think that she should be going to school. Her dad is an educator, and so he's taught her, differently. And so she stood up. I mean, she survived the being shot in the head and coming back and fleeing her country. Don't quote me on which country she's from. I know the Middle East somewhere. But with Malala's story, it's just so inspirational because now she's gone on to not only start a foundation, but to inspire millions of young girls all over the world to become whatever it is that they want to, and to show that education is for all, not for a particular gender. And, that we can make an impact in this world, despite whether we are male or female, right? And if we, if women are the, I guess the, we're the ones that everyone comes from, right? You can't possibly make it into this world without us. And of course, we need the male to help that process along, of course. But if we didn't want to have a male per se in our lives, we can go through other methods to become pregnant as well. So, do we and this is not male bashing in any way, trust me. I have three sons, I have a husband, and so I'm not coming at men at all, and trying to say anything about the male species. I believe in marriage, and I believe in fatherhood, and I believe in men being there for their children, and I believe in all that great stuff. However, where this concept comes from, where we are still fighting and women are still struggling for equality today. And like I said, equality in pay, equality in education, equality in politics, equality in so many levels. We're still trying to kick those stones away, and trying to make our ways through. Now, I don't know how many of you know, but Black women here in the United States are the most educated group in the entire United States. And let me make that very clear. We have the most bachelor's degrees, the most masters, and that's even more than white men, more than Black men, more than any other race in this country. We are the most educated. However, we're also the ones to be paid the least. So education doesn't always add up to, being fairly paid either. So some may argue and say things like, "Oh well, it's it depends on the field you're in." Men tend to get into things such as engineering and all that kind of scientific stuff, and women tend to lean towards maybe being teachers and counselors and different things like that. And therefore it doesn't have to do with the fact that they have different genders, but the fact that more as to the kind of vocation that you choose, because obviously as an engineer you're paid more, and if men tend to go into that more, then therefore they're paid more, and that would be the only reason. And I beg to differ. We still make 77 cents on every dollar that a man makes, and when we do the studies, we understand from those studies that when we compare, let's say he has the same job she had like she does, and he has the same responsibilities as she does, and they come with the same type of educational background and tenure and everything else. What we do find through those studies is that he still makes more money. If she's a lawyer and he's a lawyer, he makes more money than she does. If they're both engineers, he still makes more money than she does. If and have the same kind of background, same type of training, same type of tenure, they still he's still making more money than she does. I had a friend right out of NYU, and I remembered him saying that he was going into teaching. And as a Black male, Black males were so badly needed, and still are so badly needed within the school system, especially in big cities such as New York, that he was given an incentive to be in that program. I think $20,000 or something like that to just go into teaching. So right off the bat, he was paid more money. Not so for the female teacher, whether she was Black or white or any other race. So these things are real. When Kobe passed away, the hashtag went around, which says "girl dad," and because he was dad of these three girls, and of course he died with his along with his daughter Gianna and several other members of that plane crash, that terrible day in last year. Um, which just seemed to just catapult into everything else to me. That it never eased up after that. Everything, the world just changed. Kobe left and the world changed. And I wasn't a big, I'm not a big basketball fan or a sports fan, but, you appreciate people and what they do and how they give back to this world in a positive way. And so giving back for women is a natural instinct. They say that when you educate a man, you educate a man. But when you educate a woman, you educate an entire village. Because, and what part of that saying we must understand is that we are saying pretty much that when women get an education, we give back to the entire village. We want everyone else to learn along with us. We want every child to be educated. We want every person around us to have that same knowledge. However, what happens a lot of times is that with men, they tend to be more of they get their education, they monopolize on it and they keep it to themselves. It's not the same as when a woman is educated. And so when Oprah says that term, pretty much she's saying, well, let's educate African girls, because once we educate, if we educated 30 African girls, we've more than likely educated 60 or 120 or and more and more and more. So we have to keep multiplying these factors, because that's just how it is when it comes down to women and empowerment, and women and in business, and women in education, and so on. So we give back. Some of my most memorable mentors were women. I had one at the New York Times, and I had another woman that I knew, which was my professor, and in journalism. And so these were women who helped move me along. They weren't Caribbean women; they were African American women, a community that I tend to stick close to when, especially as it depends on my advancing in this country. There is a big difference between what Caribbean, how they go about trying to spread knowledge. I think it's more of a selfish process with Caribbean people. They know what they know, and they figure you're going to learn the hard way. It's not like in this country, and even if they're here, this is when they're here, because obviously I live in this country, but I've never been popular amongst the educated Caribbean folks, because I stay within the African American community and the educated African American community, because I tend to think that they are really willing to teach you and help you hone your skills so that you can advance in this world. And this can be for that person who comes in here and is looking for content beyond what we've been talking about in terms of moving or relocating. And this all surmises into, of course, being able to do what I want to do today, which is to relocate, because I'm going in with all this stuff, all this knowledge, all this know-how, because of the very conversation that we're having today. Not being limited because of your girlhood, not being limited because you became a young mom, not being limited because you are a black woman, not being limited because you're an Indian woman, or whatever it is that you are, or a brown woman. So never being limited, just always climbing. And so this young woman, Davina, that I've been watching at in Guyana, I'm getting back to her because, that's where my conversation started. It's really sad that she said she was talking about some of the challenges that she's facing. And one of the major challenges that she talked about is the fact that she's a girl and running her dad's business. People undermine her. The men in the community undermine what it is that she has to say. Now, this is a young woman that's coming from abroad, and she's been educated, I'm sure, abroad, and her position in terms of how she sees advancement and how she sees leadership and how she sees and understands it and knows it isn't is way beyond what the scope of what Guyana wants to put around women in particular, or the men of that society wants to put around women. Like, we are not made that way in this country. We're not limited in that way in North America. We are women who are impactful. We are women who make things happen. We are women who change history. We are women who go out there and get the job done. We are educated. We are advanced. We are ready to take on any type of whatever it is to impact change in this world. So please don't limit us. And so when I heard her story the other day, it just, it kind of boiled me, and and I titled this segment here, "Girls Hold Up This World," because we literally do. Like, how can you function as a male in this world without a man, without a woman? I'm sorry, without a woman. I heard this story once, and this is about Ron Brown. Ron Brown was a U.S. senator, and he died in a plane crash many years back. But African American male, man, and he died in a plane crash with several of the other dignitaries that day, and right here in the United States. I don't remember where that plane came down. But Ron, I heard the story about where he was talking to his wife one day, and they got married, of course, and but before him, she dated another man. Now there was a day when they were walking down the streets in DC somewhere, where they do their politics and so on, and she saw her ex-boyfriend. Well, his the ex-boyfriend was now homeless, and he turned to her, and he said, "Well, um, aren't you glad you married me? Because look at him." And she said, "Well, if I had married him, he would have been senator." What a powerful comeback. It just says that she knew where she stood, because without us, I mean, the possibilities, of success for so many men. And I know a lot of women take this back. Maybe they're not in the forefront, but they're raising the kids. They're keeping your homes clean. They're keeping your mind as focused as it can be, so you can focus on that business every day. They are, in the background, helping you be great, while she sits there and just be, ordinary to so many other people. She holds the dinners, she cooks, she cleans, she makes sure that when your business friends come over, that you look good, sir, because she knows where she stands. She's there as your backbone, and we are here to support you. But there are times, there's some of us, like myself and this young woman, we don't stay in the background. We stay pushing ahead. We are, sometimes our husbands are in the back, and we are the ones in the front, because that's just their, that's just their personalities. That's where they've chosen. And they don't have any problems with being who they are. But some of us are just out here to get the job done, and we're not afraid to. So this opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of, young women like Davina, and like I said, she's just in her 20s, and she's running her dad's business, who has passed away. And here it is that she's facing trials from community of men who feel like as though she doesn't want to, she doesn't belong in the fields of farming, or she doesn't belong in the field of running a business, or she doesn't belong wherever. Well, she's there to get the job done, and she's very capable. So how do we tend to, or how do we work on getting away from that mindset? I had a debate the other day with some guy. I don't know. I mean, I knew he was Guyanese, um, but I'm very, very opinionated in terms of my politics and how I feel. I would never bring it to this platform, because that's not that what it is. And I told him, listen, meet me elsewhere, because and this is not, he wasn't on this platform, but he was on a platform where yeah, it was a friend of mine, and I didn't want to create any firestorm on her link. And and so he says to me, oh, stop with the feminism stuff. Like, I'm not being a feminist, I'm just being Donette. Why do I have to be a feminist? Because I have an opinion on the fact that there are certain things that are not right, and that it needs to be, corrected. Like, women shouldn't be objectified to this role or that role or whatever. This is not, I question my students all the time, like, what roles are your parents playing at home? Who's in charge versus who, who sits in the background, or who is there a patriarchal household still in your home? And 90% of my students are saying, oh, my mom, um, she has just as much voice as my dad does, or sometimes she has more voice than he does. Not because he's a wimp or anything like that, but because he just sends, that's the role she plays. And some of them would, maybe about the other 10% would say, well, dad is in charge, but mom is still there and she does her thing. But rarely do I get where, yes, dad is fully in control, and my mom doesn't have a voice. So it shows you where we're moving in society, and societies like Guyana, where the culture of almost diminishing women's roles, it's just going to have to catch up with us, with women like myself, with women like Davina, with women who are coming back from overseas, who you may see our husbands just taking the back seat and letting us ride, and we speak up. It could be at a place, at a location where we don't like the food, for example, and we will just tell you that we don't like the food, and can you get us another plate? um, you will see that coming from, and you may think it's different because you live in a society where women sometimes, you can tell them hush up, and I don't know. Now, I'm gonna get to another point because there's a problem with this almost this toxic culture, which tells you that men are in charge, women should be quiet, you shouldn't say anything. There is something wrong with that, because and thank you for that thumbs up, because I have to tell you that this spells some other issues in society. Now, I'm not sure how many know the full story of what's happening, but we've gone on for the past several years with these women that are being murdered in our society all over the Caribbean, killed, chopped up. We had the police officer in Guyana who was chopped up by her male lover. Now, I'm not getting into who was right and who was wrong about infidelity, because that's not my thing. And not only that, I don't know the story anyway. But the end story was that she was chopped up into pieces. Now we have, just yesterday, I don't know, I didn't read the full story, somewhere in Linden, Guyana, where another, I think it's two sisters. I don't know, were they murdered or what? I don't know. But I heard the story with this guy that attacked these two girls, and then got on Facebook and talked about it. So I'm going to follow up on that because I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Now, if you have been listening, there's a young girl in Jamaica who was just murdered, raped and murdered recently. So this doesn't stop at male toxicity in its worst form. It doesn't stop at just being dominant, or being the one who wants to be in control. This leads to the dehumanization of women, and us being targeted by the men that we have in our lives, and us becoming victims in the worst way. Now, I know there's the story, before I go to this girl in Jamaica, there's a story of the guy that came in from Cuba, I believe it was, murdered. This was in the Indian community. Murdered the mom, murdered the little girl. She was about maybe 11, not a preteen. I don't remember exactly what age. So, but murdered her mom, and then the dad slept through the whole thing. And I'm like, how do you sleep through your daughter and granddaughter being murdered in a house? And where was this? This didn't come from nowhere, right? It had to come from someplace. It had to have come from the fact that he was being abusive prior, because you don't just murder your woman or your wife and her daughter. There is something wrong with this picture, and the men in our lives who are sitting by and allowing and seeing your daughters, your sisters, your cousins being abused and not stepping in, I beg you to start stepping up. I know that a lot of times women who are abused, they go back to their abusers. But please, when these men see you, they become more timid. They become, they know that there is another male standing there or 10 other males standing there saying, you're not going to touch my sister. You're not going to touch my daughter. You're not going to do anything to them other than love them the way that they should. And, we should be teaching our daughters how to be loved, what it looks like for a man to love her. So therefore, you're not too. I'm talking to you as well, not abusing her mom, and then expect her not to, fall back and fall into the same kind of trajectory that you have created, because you've already created a toxic lifestyle or mentality for her, and so now she feels it's okay for her to go out there and date a man who beats her every day, or every time he feels a certain way, or every time he's drunk and spends the money and do certain things. But let's say you have done those things to your wife, and you have now been, I guess, just kind of redeemed from that lifestyle. And you're now a good man making good, better decisions in society. Please don't stand by and see your daughter there. I want to tell you a story, and this makes me a little bit emotional. My, I was about maybe 15 or 16, maybe 16. I was in high school. I came home from school one day. I went to school in Manhattan, like I told you. Took the train home. Then took the bus, then walked. So I was tired, and so I was dating at the time. And yeah, I know you're saying 16 and you're dating. We weren't really, dating as in getting busy, just dating, saying we're boyfriend girlfriend kind of thing. So, this guy, I didn't know my brother was home. And for those of us who grew up in New York City, we know that the apartments, my grandmother lived in an apartment at the time, the apartments always have that peek hole. Well, and you can see down the hall. Like if you open, if you peek through the hole, you can see down the hall. I had no idea that my brother was home that day, because he's usually out hanging with his friends after school is over. So I got into the hallways, and my boyfriend at the time comes towards me, and he says, he's trying to play and mess around with me, and I'm hungry, I'm tired. I'm like, I'm just going inside, and he's highly upset because I'm upset, but I'm just exhausted, and I want to go inside. I got to get homework done. I'm keeping my focus. So I don't know what happened or how I provoked him, but let me say something. I'm standing there, and I kid you not, all I felt was a slap that came across my face that swung my head from one side to the next. Now, I'm barely 16 years old. I've never been judged by anybody before, somebody hitting me. So I'm shocked. But with the same speed, he slapped my face, and I'm barely like 90 something pounds. So I'm not, I'm this little skinny girl. My brother opens that door, and he comes out, and he says, Donette, go inside. Now, don't let me tell you how happy I was to see that see my brother that day. I've always been happy to see him, but I was the happiest person in the world, because I knew I was in trouble. He says, go inside. And I didn't even hesitate, because I was that frightened at what happened. I just grabbed my bag from the floor and I ran inside. But I stood at the door, and I heard him say to my boyfriend, he says, the next time you touch my sister, he says, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. He says, don't ever touch her again. He says, Donette, don't ever talk to this guy again. And I made him a promise that I wouldn't. And I walked away that day knowing that, and still feeling in my soul to this day, that that was the beginning of what was going to be an abusive relationship. Now, I did meet this guy up. I refused to talk to him after that day, because not only was I embarrassed, but I was hurt. And how dare you touch me? I didn't do you anything. How dare you touch me? But that's how abuse starts. They start with just smacking you. to try to show dominance, take away the people around you, try to, get you into a position where you feel you're not loved and you're not worthy. And so this guy just, I stayed away from him. My girlfriend calls me over. I have to finish the story. My girlfriend calls me over one day. Oh, Donna, come over, because she usually has me. Used to have me. I was younger, but she was older, and she used to have me take letters to her little side man up the street somewhere, so she can get things from him because she was actually dating at the time. So I would take the letters because, like I said, she was probably maybe 5, 6 years older, so she had a certain amount of control over me, and I liked her as a person, and I wanted to hang with her, so I did whatever she said. So I would take letters to her boyfriend outside of her boyfriend, not knowing, right, her real boyfriend, not knowing. So one day she calls me. It wasn't unlike her to call me. I didn't realize that I was walking into danger, and this is what I'm saying of people standing by. And I got into the hallways of her building. She lived across the street. And this guy who I've been hiding from and not wanting to be in touch, he's standing there. And of course, he wants to talk. And I'm like, hell no, I don't want to talk. And I'm fussing and cussing him out and whatever it is. And he's feeling disrespected. So now he decides he's going to fire his hands again. And I am little at 90 something pounds, but I am not letting up. I am fighting him with all my might, and I'm just going at it. And I'm not letting him hit me and not hit him back. And I'm trying. But of course, he's a male. So, his hands are much heavier than mine. I'm little and I'm a girl, and I'm just fighting this guy with all my might. And she's just standing there, and I'm like, and then she's finally says, "Do you want me to call your mom?" I said, "Yes, call my mom." She's like, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, call her now." I said, "Because he's beating me and he's not stopping." And she said, and because he's winning the fight. This is not a boyfriend and girlfriend fight. This is a stranger fight, because now I wasn't talking to him. And finally, she gets my mom over, and my mom is one of those fire rage of, listen, don't mess with her kids. She got in that building, and she just took off on him. I mean, you should have seen how you should have seen him run like a little girl. He just ran out the building. My mom say, "You ever touch my so and so child again, I will kill you." And she dragged me home. She says, "Don't ever talk to him." I said, "I wasn't talking to him." I said, "She called me over. And like a friend, I thought she was just calling me over. And she called me into a situation that almost got my butt killed." I separated from her immediately, as much as I liked her. And he never said anything to me again. My mom spoke to he was there in New York from Miami with his older, I don't know, I mean, friend or whatever. And he told the friend some story, and my mom went to the friend, and she said, "Listen, if he ever touches my child again, where the cops is going to be involved." And they don't want any cops on their tails, because they were up to no good. And his older sibling friend, whatever it was at the time, kind of smacked him up, on the head a couple of times, and told him, "Don't ever touch me or talk to me again." So he kind of retreated after that. I didn't have any problems with him. But notice what happened. If my brother had not stepped in that day, I probably would have become a victim forever under this guy's control. So this whole thing about, male toxicity, and, understanding that it moves beyond corporate, it moves beyond gender differentiation. It moves beyond just saying, okay, he makes more money than she does. It moves, to a level of us as women becoming victims to these men who prey on us. I've been with my husband for 28 years, 28, and he's never, ever crossed those lines. Never touched me, always supported me, always loved on me, always respected me. Now, these societies where these women are constantly, like Guyana, Jamaica, and other parts of the Caribbean, where we're constantly hearing about these women being murdered, by the hands of these men who are supposed to love and protect them. It's sad. So let me get back to this young woman. So she's 20 years old. Don't ask me the background story. They're still uncovering what's happening. 20 years old, beautiful young girl, and 50 something year old man. I don't know if they were in a relationship or what has happened. Don't know, don't want to say. But if you follow the story online, I'll tell you her name. If you follow the story on YouTube, you will see what I'm talking about. He raped her and then murdered her at 20 years old. She's her mama's only child. She's now dead, and this was just last week that this happened. And it's sad. So it doesn't only stay in the realm of monetary gains or certain successes. It moves to the level where women are being undermined so much that they're devalued and then almost looked at as chopped meat, so that these men who have are boys who have no respect for human life and for a woman just like his mama, that he couldn't even um, respect her enough to, or to value her enough to not do the demonic things that he's done to her. So it doesn't stop there, guys. And all I'm saying is it has to stop somewhere. And women like Davina and like myself are not to be seen as, okay, we're a threat or anything like that. I had a friend recently, told me, I have a friend who recently told me that I seem kind of rude, and I'm like, why would you say that? And he's from Guyana, and he happens to be a male authority in terms of his profession, police officer, and actually in a very high rank. And I said, why do you think that I'm rude? He follows me on, different platforms when I debate with people and on politics and gender issues, cultural issues. I don't know. He's always in, I don't know. He just follows me. Maybe he likes what I have to say, I guess. And, he says to me that I'm kind of rude. And I'm like, no, I'm not rude. I said, I grew up in the Western world. I grew up where voices are heard, and I'm an educated woman, and I have something to say, and I say it. Why should I not say it? So you can see, and he's also older than I am, so you can see generationally, he's already, kind of put me into this box where he sees me as maybe I need to be quiet. But why do women like myself and Davina, why aren't we, our opinions valued? Why do we have to shut up? We don't need to shut up. If there's something going on, in whether it's politics or business or any other issues that is happening, why can't we speak up without being seen as troublemakers or we need to be quiet? And I hope that at some point we are able to come to a place in these societies where women aren't seen as underneath men or below them in some way. Um, and I think that's probably going to be the only troubling part for me in terms of when I return home to Guyana. Um, because I'm growing up in this kind of society, it's hard to to then revert back into, or revert, because I didn't know that, I didn't understand my existence and my voice and everything else at such a young age growing up in Guyana. And I grew up mostly here. So obviously, everything that I've been taught and how to handle business and lead to, I hope that that's not my experience, because that wouldn't be a good thing. And so far doing business, and I don't know if it's because I'm coming from overseas, I tend to get a lot more respect when I deal with the men in that society. But that's because maybe because I'm here, and I'm thinking that like Davina, I should expect to not be heard as well. But please, let's stop with this male toxic our Caribbean nations are in, and stop murdering. Or you have the strength to. A man's body, just his upper body, is 70% more powerful than any average female. 70%. You don't need to overpower her. All you need to do is love her. They say that us women are most sexually open when we feel secure. For a woman, security is everything. And for a man, sex is everything. Well, if you want her to be sexually open, make her feel secure. She shouldn't have to feel as though you are her enemy. And when you come around, she flinches because she doesn't know if your hands is coming at her or if you're going to, just touch her lovingly. Like she should feel secure. And the daughters that you are raising, please let them feel as empowered as Kobe would have made his girls feel. I am sure that that hashtag girl dad will forever resonate in their hearts, and they will feel as though they can empower and be powerful women. We have seen, where women are out here making and breaking barriers and pulling down stereotypes. And it was two women that literally turned, two women that we can talk about who has literally turned the American elections upside down. Stacey Abrams of Georgia, right, is one of them. And there are plenty of other women out there that were doing it, but she's one of the main people, you know, where we are because of Stacey. And these are black women who are out there empowered, being empowered. These are HBCU women, that attended, predominantly black universities, and has sworn to change the world. That's what HBCUs are all about. You go to those schools and they talk a little bit bad about those schools, but Kamala, Harris is HBCU. Kamala has, she's one of the most powerful women in the world right now. Coming from Indian or Asian background, Asian and black background. Um, so please let us empower our girls. My grandpa empowered me by telling me that if I'm smart and if I go to school and if I do the right things, that I would be extremely well. To me, it just meant that I would be extremely good when I come to America, in terms of I'll be okay, right? So he just kind of empowered me that way. I looked at that man as my shining star. He had one fight with my grandma one night. I never called him Step because he was everything to me. And so there was a night he wanted to go to a club, and he was a dress man. He loved to dress, right? And he was such a stick, kind of like he stood out in the community. He was very respected. And so, they always partied. He's a country man. You know how to dance, you know how to waltz. And my grandma was a waltzer too, them old time people. And she is, she's still alive. He's passed on now. But she's too old to waltz now, but she waltzes in her heart and in her mind. She talks about all those old. When I go to Guyana, I always play like old music so she can hear it, and she just kind of sits there and bask in that beauty of what she used to be able to do. Anyways, with that said, my grandpa was the kind of like the staple of what I saw in a man, or what I wanted my husband to be. So when I actually chose a man much like my grandpa, because That one fight that they had, just that one night, in all the the life time that I spent with him and her. It was just over him going to a party, and she just took some red sand. We live in the sandy area of Guyana in Linden, and so she took some red sand and she threw it at him and his white shirt. Well, that was the worst thing she could have done. And because he was such a clean gentleman and he prided himself in his clothes, and I guess he just thought, I'm just gonna go back inside. So he came back inside, took off his clothes, and went back to bed with his wife. And that was I to be honest with you, that's as physical as I ever saw those people got. Did they debate on things? Yeah, but they debated, but she would say like, so and so, and he would be like McNan, whatever, and they'll just talk. And I just grew up in a household where conversation was everything, and I just appreciated that. So I learned how to have a conversation, and to just not go there in terms of touching and hitting people. I should say, keep your hands off people. You have no right to touch anyone. And if your parents beat you, because I got beatings, I mean, how many of us didn't, right? I mean, you got beatings, but that doesn't mean you grow up and you beat people and you beat your kids and you beat everybody around you. It's just toxic. It's ridiculous. We had two kids that got no spanking whatsoever, and one that did get spanking because he just pretty much was a bad kid. That's my first one I told you about. Just didn't listen, but I didn't beat him silly. He just kind of got spanking whenever he deserved it. And the other two were great kids, and they had no reason to get spanking. And they did get like one or two spanking growing up, but literally from all the way up until they left our home, they were just good boys. And the older one who did get a spanking, he's still the most loving kid. After he turned 18, he became the most loving kid. So let me represent that right. But please, if my boys, if their wives, or only one is married now, but in future were to tell me that my sons hit them, I would lose it. I would lose it. I'm not going. I don't care if you're my kid. I'm on this girl's side all the way. You're not touching anybody's child, and I don't want anybody touching my kids either. Just because they're boys, it doesn't mean that they can't be abused, because we know abuse can go both ways. I don't want them with some girl or woman who's going to be touching them, hitting them, abusing them. And I mean, thank God I have big, kids who are pretty solid in terms of their height and everything. They're not like me. They're not short. They're pretty tall and pretty solid, thank God. One is 6'1", one is almost 6, and the other one he's not that tall. He's 5'11", but but still, they're not they're not to be touched on. Whether they're 6 feet 7, or 5'1" like myself, don't touch them. Don't touch people. They're people are not to be touched and abused. Love people, and well, your hands should be in a caressing way upon the person that and upon your kids as well. So anyway, I was trying to see if I find a name for this young girl, so that way you can have it before I leave, in case anyone comes on and want to find out what happened to this girl. um Kanisha, I believe her name was. I can't remember exactly. um All right, so if I can't find it, because I don't want to be too distracted and trying to search through my phone, I will put her name. I will hashtag it so that way people can come in and find out what happened to her. As a result of this same male toxic society that we live in, we have girls like this. As a result of people not respecting, females, and honoring their strengths, and honoring whatever it is that they bring in. And I pray that I don't reach that culture, myself in a very broad way. But I think like Davina, it's gonna happen. But if you're listening and you're a male in Guyana or Jamaica or Trinidad, wherever it is that you are, please stop it. because it's just not, it's not becoming, it's not healthy, it's not good. And to murder someone eventually because of the fact that you can't control your rage, it's sad. Alrighty, thank you for listening. I know a few people logged in today to hear my live, and I know it went a little bit off from what I usually cover, but I hope that this conversation actually stirs more discussion around this issue of male toxicity and respecting our women and honoring us and encouraging us to make changes and to build and just being there, because there's some of us that stay in the background, like I said, and there's some of us that can't. And I'm one of those, just like Davina. We're just in front. And most of the times we're in front of our husbands. All right. Thank you. And that's not limiting him. He's very much a man, but we're just the voice. We just do what we got to do. So I just want to clarify that before I leave. Thanks again, and do take care. And hopefully this whole thing will start a deeper conversation. And I'll hashtag her name because we need to remember these women. And in fact, I'll try to go research some of the women and hashtag even their names as well. It's just sad. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.